For this project, we need fabric. I chose something that is thin and stretchy. Measuring tape, pins, scissors, thread, and elastic. I chose a thick elastic that's about 3 centimeters wide. This skirt is going to have a lettuce hem, an asymmetrical hemline, and a hidden elastic waistband. We are going to need to take 4 measurements for this skirt. 2 length measurements, 1 waist measurement, and 1 large hip measurement. Starting with the large hip measurement and the longest length measurement, we're going to create 2 rectangles. Because of our butt, our back piece needs to be a little bigger, so I did a little math to move the measurements around. I then used measuring tape and pins to cut out my 2 rectangles. Folding over our elastic seam allowance, we're going to pin our 2 rectangles right sides together, making sure that the smaller rectangle is in the front. It's also important that our fabric is stretchy enough that our waist stretches over the large hips. Folding up our elastic seam allowance, we're ready to zigzag stitch our side seams. As you can see, the skirt goes in a little at the waist, but not too much that it doesn't stretch over my hips. Now folding down the seam allowance, try on your skirt to test the fit. If you're happy with it, you can trim away all the excess side seam fabric, and then add an extra zigzag stitch on the side. Now using your 2 length measurements, you're going to cut your asymmetrical hem. I used pins to create a line to help myself cut the hemline. I then used a piece of scrap fabric cut on the bias to test out the lettuce hem. I played around with the length and the width before I decided on which stitch to use for my lettuce hem. I ended up using medium width and a short length, and pulled the fabric slightly while I stitched. I was then ready to move on to my real hemline. My fabric curled a little bit in the presser foot, which helped create the lettuce hem. Now we're going to use our 4th measurement, which is our waist. This is the measurement we're going to use for the length of our elastic. I then added about 4 centimeters to cross over. With your skirt inside out, place the elastic around the waist, and then fold over 1 centimeter to tuck around the waistband. Then attach where your elastic crosses over with a zigzag stitch. I just went over it back and forth to make sure that it was strong enough to hold. And then pin your elastic back in the waistband. You're then going to do 2 stitches along the elastic. The first stitch is over the 1 centimeter seam allowance that you just folded over. Make sure to use a zigzag stitch. The second stitch is going to be along the bottom of the elastic. You're then going to fold over the waistband and pin at the side seams. To make sure the waistband didn't move around, I also pinned at the front and the back of the skirt. Then with my sewing machine, I did a little stitch at the top and the bottom of the elastic, at all 4 points where I placed the pins. And you're all done!